Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Making It. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how many hours we work in the creator economy, how we are diversifying our income. Gwilym gives me some business ideas to help with this, and we also talk a little bit about how to focus in your day-to-day life working in the creator economy. And you may notice George is missing this week. He's busy up in Edinburgh at the Fringe Festival. He's doing his comedy duo work. And so this week it's a duo episode between me and Gwilym, and we hope that you enjoy. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the average work week and how many hours that we work in this creator economy and trying to, run a business, because we've both been doing this for coming up to, I think, like a year and a half now. And for me, on average, it's quite lengthy hours, at least 10 hours a day minimum. But on average, usually around 12 hours. And then sometimes it's absolutely crazy that I get up to like 14 hours. I know Paddy Galloway tweeted earlier this week. He was using Rise, the app that lets you track your time. And I think he had 13 hours that he'd done in that day, and like loads of, like 5 hours of that was just meetings, and then he had like a bunch of other things. And I responded to that with a screenshot of my own time tracking for that day, and it was 14 hours, and it was very similar. And obviously we're both quite similar in the work that we do. And so in a way it was kind of like, oh, okay, like I'm not alone in this. You know, if the biggest YouTube strategist is doing that, then I guess it's a good thing that I'm also, doing that, and I'm not working 4 hours a day or anything. But at the same time, I was like, something kind of needs to change here. And he alluded to that in his tweet. He said, maybe it's time I should start to delegate and outsource, because he hasn't really done that. And for me, I've started to do that in this past week. I was kind of like, I need to find someone who can help to take like a couple of tasks off my plate, because the hours have been like that since last year. And I think once you get to a certain point in a business, you kind of need to adapt and change. And I think that's what then gets you to that next level in the business. Otherwise, you're on a hamster wheel. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on how many hours you work, and if you have any plans to kind of delegate and outsource what you do.
Yeah, I think the main difference between us is that I do scripting for clients and you don't. Scripting is a real pain in the ass sometimes, as like just in how long it takes to get things right. Especially the newer a client is, the more time it takes to like learn their voice. You should ideally watch their videos back. So yeah, that takes a while. Channel management is another beast entirely, where it's very different to script writing. It's not, at least with script writing, it's like a very defined package of stuff you're delivering. But with channel management, if you're doing it just a few days a week, for example, or maybe you're managing different channels, there's always that temptation to check Slack, because you can always be the bottleneck at any given time. Like, hey, Gwilym, is this like, I've got this thumbnail like done early. Should we like tweak it? I'm going on holiday next week. Or maybe like the video editor has gotten their edit finished on Saturday morning, but you're not working on Saturday or Sunday or Monday. And so if you don't watch it that weekend, you're going to be bottlenecking the whole process till Tuesday. So yeah, I think I work, it's hard to put a number on it, probably something like 10 hours a day, but that is not like high quality hours of work. That is a lot of like, oh, I'll go and get a coffee. I bring coffee back. I like look at the script a bit. I'll do some research on YouTube about like this type of video, and then obviously I see something else that's interesting, and that's kind of professionally useful as well.
It's like a rabbit hole that you can always go down.
We work by the infinity pool of content, right? We're making stuff for it, but we're also always getting dragged back in. And if we were not getting dragged back in, we would kind of not be, in some ways, we would not be doing our jobs well, because we wouldn't be kind of up to date. But something that Mr. Beast said fairly recently was that he really doesn't watch YouTube that much at all, because he's just focused on doing his own videos. He knows what works for him. And so I get the feeling like he watches more anime and maybe documentaries or something, more than YouTube these days.
Yeah, I imagine like if we're working those crazy hours, he's probably matching and exceeding that. even though he has team members that are obviously taking loads of that off of his plate. Yeah, I imagine that the last thing he wants to do is to watch YouTube videos. He's probably spending his whole life, dealing with YouTube. I would say I'm similar in the fact that I watch YouTube in my spare time still, but there is still that part of me watching someone and being like, oh, that would be, a cool video idea for that client, or, oh yeah, what if we edit it? It's hard to turn off that part of the brain. And for me, it's like I have like consulting calls. So that's like an hour a week, sometimes 2 hours a week with certain clients. I have channel management, where I spend 4 hours spread out across that, over 2 days, but it's actually more than that. It's more than the 8 hours, similar to the reasons that you gave around being the bottleneck and having to jump on things. And then it's like trying to run my own business, trying to think about how to promote myself, upgrading that, the website, for example, or building other products or tweeting or whatever it is. And it is just a roundabout of just distractions and focus. And I think that this is one of the key things that I've really learned about, is that it is just focus, because there are some people that I know who get so much done. And I'm not just talking about in the creator economy, but in general. And it's because they focus. They're able to say, for the next month or the next 3 months, this is one thing that I'm doing. And that sole focus allows you to make so much more progress than if you were scattergunned. And I think it was Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. They were having a dinner one time and there was a third party. And the guy said, if there's one thing that you need to be successful in business, what would it be? And they both had to write down one word in like an envelope and then give it to this guy. And they both opened it and it was the exact same word, and it was focus. And I do think that it absolutely is the key to success in a lot of ways. Like whenever I've really focused, my business has done so much better, right? So I can give an example here in that, I don't know, around October, November time, I had the idea for the Thumbnail Vault, which is this website that has a database of over 1,000 of the best thumbnails on YouTube. And each thumbnail is broken down into the niche that it's from, but also sort of like elements and assets within the thumbnail make it work. So, is it psychology? Is it the arrows? And it allows you to filter all of these things to see a specific type of thumbnail. And people find it really useful. And I found it quite useful, but to find over 1,000 very strong thumbnails, to categorize all of those took up so much time. And it came down to the pricing, and I wasn't too sure what to price it. And so I made it like a monthly subscription. I played around with it. And it doesn't make a huge sum of money. I think at its peak, it was making like £170 a month, which is probably like 180 something dollars. And warranted the amount of time that I had to spend problem shooting with the awful sort of software that's needed to run this database, building the website, managing someone to help me, find all of those different assets and kind of like helping them to break down all of those thumbnails. It took so much time. And when I looked at my consulting income, it just went off like a cliff, and it went down every single month that I was working on the Thumbnail Vault. And I just thought, you know what, this is not the moneymaker. It's not my expertise. Like, it is my expertise because I understand the thumbnails, but it's more like the impact that I have on my clients is far greater having one-on-one calls with them and answering their emails and giving feedback on their videos and helping them with their thumbnails than it is building this website that anyone can use for free. And if you want some of the premium features, it's like $6 a month. The price that, $170 or whatever it was a month is nothing. Like 1 hour of my time at this moment is like £250 an hour, right? That's kind of where I usually leave it. Sometimes it's higher, but that's my go-to price. 1 hour there is like instantly beats an entire month of the Thumbnail Vault. And that's 1 hour versus potentially, multiple days per week spent on that website. And I got rid of it. I haven't really focused on the Thumbnail Vault. I maintain it for the subscribers that are there. I have thoughts about going back, but every time I do, I'm like, no, just stay on the consulting front, because you're having an impact with clients. You make more money. You're able to grow the business. And as soon as I started to focus on that, the business started to grow again. So I really do think that focus is important. It's just difficult to find, I think, when you're offering so many services and you have so many different clients in different time zones, and they're all at different levels. I have some clients that, need their hand holding, and there are some that you tell them what to do and they just go and do it. And, those are my favorite clients. But yeah, it's a huge mix.
Yeah, I think something I bear in mind when I'm doing any creator economy work is on the one hand, like how much do I enjoy it? Like how much does it feel like it's draining my energy versus kind of giving me energy? I generally find that channel management gives me energy because it always feels like something is getting done. Scripting gives me energy if it's something I really am excited to get into, but if it's something I'm not excited about, then it can be super draining. And consulting calls I do enjoy. I don't do that many, but when I do them, I really enjoy them because of the element of talking to someone, figuring out problems. It's kind of nice when people's eyes light up and they're like, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. So there's like how much energy I get out of it. There's how well it pays, and what's the kind of how will the money scale up over time? So if you carry on doing scripting, there's probably some kind of upper limit to it. If you carry on doing consult per script, if you carry on consulting, there's probably a higher upper limit per like hour of your time, how much you get paid. But then the other thing that I think about is how much am I learning while doing this thing? What a thumbnail vault might not pay that well, but I imagine going through all that stuff and doing all that grunt work and looking at all the thumbnails that you did has massively kind of boosted your thumbnail brain, even if it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that's the case? Because I imagine it would be.
Yeah, it certainly made me more aware of the different types of thumbnails that are out there. And working with clients, it's like much easier for me to remember, oh yeah, there was that thumbnail that got 40 million views because of this, and show that to a client and explain how we can incorporate those elements into their thumbnail. And it's still a very good resource to have. I still open it, I still use it. I still get tweets from people who are using it and love it. There are still people who sign up on a weekly basis to use it. So there are absolutely other benefits than kind of just like how much money it brings in. I definitely think that the thumbnail vault has legs and it could be very big had I had someone else to kind of like manage it and kind of be like, this is the North Star of this website. This is where I want it to go. And I can absolutely help them with it. But it's like me having to contact customer support because there's a glitch on the website because of the latest feature has broken something. That is not something I want to spend 40 minutes going back and forth with, a chat bot, like that. I'd rather outsource to someone else who can do all of that stuff. And I'm kind of like working on the marketing aspect, creating YouTube content, for example, that actually gets people aware of the thumbnail vault. That to me seems like way more like a higher ROI of my time than me actually sat there tweaking things and building things, and that's kind of like the next point I want to move on to is a lot of my time every single week is spent on channel management or consulting. And as we mentioned at the beginning of this call, sometimes it can be like 14-hour days and it's very, very tiring. And it's like, okay, the next day I wake up, it's the same thing again,
Yeah. And sometimes if you like roll out of bed and it sucks if you wake up and you don't feel kind of ready to give it 100%. Especially with creative work.
Yeah. And there's something there around, wanting a break. Like I've been doing this a year and a half. I haven't really had much time of a break. And when I have you basically are given this problem in that, okay, if I want to take a vacation, and fly to Portugal this weekend and just like have a week of just relaxing and come back fresh, ready to tackle the business again. I basically have to say, okay, well, in that case, I'm not going to do the consulting calls because it's not really a break unless I get rid of all of that. But in other words, that's saying, okay, I'm about to just, drop thousands of pounds through that 1 week of not wanting to work on that. And that's not a good feeling to be like, okay, yeah, I could have a break or I could have, X amount of thousands of pounds. That's a hard decision because it's not just the consulting call money that you're losing. It's also, I then need to pay for flights, hotel, things to do. I'm away from the business, and there might be, like my video editor, for example, she might need help with things. And so I need to give, feedback to videos. So I can't really be fully switched off. I always have to be present. And that again is like a problem with having your time attached to how you make your money. And that's where I wanted to go with this next part of this podcast conversation of, what are you currently doing to help diversify your income? Because I have a lot of different ideas, but that's not always the best place to be in. Because if you take the thumbnail vault, for example, it was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. Let me spend time working on that thing. And it ends up being more work than you think, or it's not worth it. For me, it's like I could create a thumbnail course. I could create a community. I could create group coaching, for more people at an affordable rate. I could, maybe focus more on the thumbnail vault and revamp it and make it a better product. I could sell Notion templates from all of the insane templates that I have working with my clients. Like there are 1,000 different things I can do, but it's like, what's the time? Can I delegate that to someone to help build? Because I don't really have that much time to deal with it now. How are you doing that?
So a good quote from, I think, Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, is I think it goes something like, first-time founders are obsessed with building great products. Second-time founders are obsessed with having great distribution. So like when you start off, you're obsessed with like, how can I make a really great thing? And the second, and then once you've had the experience of making a really great thing, and some people are like, oh my God, it's amazing. But most people don't know because they have never heard of it, and you have no way of getting the word out about it. Once you've had that experience, you then decide, next time I'm creating a product, I'm going to make sure that everyone is going to hear about it because they're already interested in what I have to say, or I'm not sure what the equivalent is in the business world. I'm at a very kind of fledgling stage of, creating any product. I haven't done anything like that yet. Mainly just, I think, out of like inertia or laziness. I wouldn't say laziness because I've been working on loads of client work. It's just been kind of analysis paralysis. But yeah, what I'm focusing on at the moment is just getting myself into gear with setting up a newsletter, just tweeting more constantly, things like that, kind of solving the block of speaking for myself in public. And I think that for me at the moment is the most important thing, that not only drives consulting calls, more interest in script writing, new clients, but it also creates this base that I can sell products with later on. So I think for me that makes more sense than working really hard on a product, getting it out there, and people just not hearing about it.
I think you've got a lot of things to say. I have been surprised that you haven't started tweeting or created a newsletter since last year. Like George and I, we got started on that right away, and you kind of like took your time and like analyzed what the landscape was like before jumping in. And so I think it makes sense for you to start, letting people know who you are and, building from there. A question that I would have though is, from what I understand, you're not struggling to get clients. You're very busy. You just said you're working 10 hours a day. You have channel management work, you have script work, you have script consulting work. So by building an audience, you're going to have inflow, which is good. And obviously you can then raise prices if you want. But that in a way feels like you'd then be in my situation where you have sold all of your time. And it's like, okay, now I need to diversify, but I'm struggling to do that because now my time is filled up with client work. So I guess it's a tricky balance really from taking that approach.
That's why there's been no urgency, is that my time is filled with client work. I can fill more time with client work just through kind of referrals and whatnot. But I think the main push comes from the idea that, some really interesting clients have come to me just through things I've put out in public, like a few tweets, or maybe like sometimes even like a comment on someone else's post. Someone hears about that and then they're like, oh, hey, we'd like to work with you. And I'm like I didn't, in some cases, like people I didn't even know about, but came to me and they were really interesting. And then I was like, oh yeah, I would love to work with you. And I imagine, and this probably goes for anyone at any level of the consulting game, like including, I don't know, Paddy Galloway or whatever. You know, maybe at some point, once he's expanded his reach far enough, maybe, I don't know, like Barack Obama will be like, hey, Paddy, I'm starting a YouTube channel and I heard about you randomly. Would you be interested in like helping me manage it or something like that, right? So yeah, I think I'm just trying to level up on that ladder because I know there are more opportunities out there, even though my time is filled up right now.
Yeah, it goes back to what we mentioned before we started recording of a lot of times with business, it's the information that you don't know. And it requires like the mindset shift that I had to go through to go from 0 to 2K a month to 2K to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 has been different every single time. And it fluctuates. And it's this constant battle that you've got to have. And it requires new thinking. And I think that's why people like business mentors are really useful, or even other people who you speak to them and like, oh, I didn't realize you were, you know, making that much money. And you start speaking to them more about their business and how they're helping people, how they've structured up their entire business. And it's like, oh, yeah, I should probably do something like that. And it's this light switch. And all of a sudden, your business just levels up. And it's because you just didn't have that information. I think Alex Hormozy always says that, you know, if you have $1 million per year and you're making 50K a year, you're paying 950K a year by not knowing how to make $1 million. And he basically uses this phrase of paying off ignorance debt. And I think that's what I've been doing for the past year and a half. Is it's like I know this stuff from like the YouTube side of things, but running the business, I'm slowly learning about all of these things, and I'm paying off this ignorance debt. And that's why my income can get better every month, and I can see the forest from the trees a little bit more. And you know, that Jay Klaus put out a great podcast with Justin Moore, I don't know, maybe like 2-3 months back. Because I think Justin was sort of similar in a way to where we are with sort of his value ladder. And this entire podcast, I think it's like 45 minutes of sort of like stepping stones, you know, for the people who cannot afford, you know, Justin's 5K course. I think it was 5K a course, but they could afford the, you know, the $10 offer that he had, or the $50 offer. And it's just about staircasing your way up to these higher products. And I think for me, I've started off with consulting, but I don't really have many lower offers, and I don't really have any bigger offers than that. And I think that for me, the Thumbnail Vault was my attempt at having a lower offer of like $7 a month. But I think that probably wasn't the best idea, just because of how much that product demands of my time. That whilst yes, it is at a lower rate, it requires so much time for me that I actually don't put enough time into it to grow it, to make it worth it. And so that's why I'm thinking, okay, maybe instead of like a subscription based product, I need to have a one-off, you know, a template, a course, like something that I need to create that is a one-off. And I think that makes more sense for me.
Yeah. I'm just thinking I can shoot some ideas at you for what your lower priced offer might be, and you can tell me how enthusiastic you feel about it. So this would be like a bit like an async consultation, where it's a bit like a course, but it's more you asking people questions. So you'd have maybe people can buy the kind of the initial Jamie consultation, where there are 5 videos and you ask like a question per video, and it just kind of prompts them to think about, so for example, like, who is your channel for? This is generally how I think about how to tackle this question. And then maybe they write out their answers below. And that could be, you could add to that in many ways, but that could be a good thing that people could maybe, I don't know, buy for like $10 or something. But it would also in a way be their first consultation with you, but an async one where you don't have to put in any energy. And then they might be like, I really liked that. That was a good experience. Why don't I book some like live ones with him? Thoughts on that? Pros, cons?
Yeah, I think that is definitely something that I should consider. I guess it for me, it's always kind of like, okay, which one do I need to pick here? Because if it was like thumbnails, I could talk about thumbnails all day, both from a psychological aspect of getting the click, but also from a design perspective. But I feel like if I'm going to make something for that, should it be, a 20-minute spiel on everything that I know, like kind of condensed into 20 minutes and it's $15? It's like, that feels like that would work and be valuable to people. But then I also feel, well, why not just make the course? And it's like, well, okay, maybe it's not thumbnails because there's so much there. Maybe it's more about defining who your audience is, understanding how to get started and looking at who your niche is and helping people there kind of solve that problem of who it is that I'm speaking to. Because that's why a lot of people don't get started, is they don't know what their niche is, who they're going to talk to, all of these things. I have loads of stuff that I can talk about there. And maybe that's a 20, 30-minute video with PDFs and questions and things like that to help them. And that's the $15 one-off product. And I would be happy to do that. But again, it's that thing of, do people actually care? Would they want to buy that? Is that then going to be now a product that's sat on my website where I feel like I have to promote that often, as opposed to having 2 or 3 substantial like courses or whatever that I push? Again, it's one of those things where it's like, am I just overthinking all of this and I should just make stuff and put it out? I don't know.
I think focusing on value is a good one, and novelty to some extent. Maybe I think an interesting one. There are lots of, and what's like highest leverage for the person who's consuming it. One thing that you could use to target a higher end audience. I know you're going for a lower end offer, but something you could use to target a higher end audience would be a really thorough job description with breakdowns of how the person should do it for a channel manager job. So these are all the things that a channel manager does. And I'm going to give you detailed kind of instructions on how I do each of those things. And so you can buy this if you're a channel manager yourself to see where your blind spots are. You can buy it if you're looking to hire someone so you can have good expectations of what they're going to do. The only downside is that obviously the market for this isn't huge because there are only so many channels.
That's why I say I feel like for me that wouldn't be a low ticket. That'd be a high ticket.
Yeah.
Because channel managers can get paid a lot of money per year, and the people who are hiring channel managers typically are businesses or very, very large YouTubers that make tens of thousands of dollars per month. So to me, that would be, especially if you're going to teach people how to do the job that you're doing, you don't want to be, giving out the secrets for, $15. You'd want that to be more like 2,000 or 3,000, maybe even more than that, because you're really solving a rich person's problem. And that's where you never want to charge that as super cheap. You always want that to be as high as possible. But yeah, there's like, these are good ideas, and this is the thing where it's like, I have all of these ideas of, what could I do? Maybe I need to start writing them down and rank them in some way. Because yeah, I don't know, like I feel like for me as well, like I'm very similar to you in that I want to build my audience. I feel like having the audience is like almost more important than having the products, because we've seen creators who have very strong followings, and then they launch the product and it's like, boom, instantly they're, making $100,000 a month, through like a subscription to a community, let's say. I think I could get to that point. It's just a case of, I need to have more people know about me. And that comes through putting out, good tweets and good YouTube content. But going back to what we talked about, when you're working 14 hours a day and you've got, 8 clients, 9 clients, there's no time to look at your own content. And for me, that's kind of like the big bottleneck, is because when you are a YouTube consultant, you have to be putting out the best YouTube videos possible, right? But to do that, it requires time. And that's where I'm kind of nervous in that it's like, I either have to sacrifice client work to focus on my own channel, or I just focus on actually growing the channels like I am for my clients and use their testimonials of evidence that I can do, what it is that I say I can do. And I think that's where Paddy Galloway is sort of is. He's put out these incredible videos. I don't think he's uploaded a video for nearly a year because he's so busy working on the clients.
Which is a real shame. Yeah,
it is, because he's great. I love watching his videos. I think that's why he's very good at tweets and newsletters now, is because it's way easier to put out text content than it is video content, because you also have, like I say, you have to make sure it's a good video. if you're talking about how you're helping people make videos.
And it's probably worth also thinking that maybe people with a lot of money to spend on him who will probably usually not have that much time, and they might be more likely to be on Twitter reading a thread in 1 minute rather than watching a 20-minute YouTube video.
Yeah, that's why for me, like the steps that I think that will require me to kind of like get out of this problem is either delegate and outsource like what Paddy's going to do to someone who I can work with to build one of these products, then use that income to reduce the amount of client work that I do so I have more free time so that I can build a YouTube channel. And then at that point, once the YouTube channel is making more money, through itself, then you can spend more time helping the masses rather than just 7 YouTubers, because I'd rather help more people. I always feel like, there's unlimited beginners. There's always new people wanting to start YouTube channels. And there's just so much stuff out there that is not great. And I think that it could be definitely improved upon. And so that seems to me to be the sequence of events that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think it's worth bearing in mind as well what I think George said this on a previous episode, but you need to stay in touch with the serious work as well in order to carry on learning. So if I'm not writing scripts, I'm not learning more about how to write a script. And if I haven't written a script in like a month or something because I've been focusing on consulting, it feels a bit wrong to give lots of script writing advice because I'm not like in there applying those lessons.
Yeah, I'm the exact same. It's a balance. Like I've taken on thumbnail work for clients, even though financially it's the wrong decision. Like I say, you can make more money with working with clients in a consulting fashion or channel management position, but I still take some thumbnail work only for like specific clients who I know are like quite big, who are interesting. I do that work, but it's not because I need the money. It's absolutely not that at all. It's to keep my skills sharp. It's to think about fresh concepts. It's about being able to work with other people and to show them, the things that I know and to get results on their videos. Because as you say, it's your expertise cannot just be your knowledge. I feel like you need to show how you can apply it. And sometimes that can be difficult when you have certain clients who make you sign NDAs and you can't talk about this thing. So, there are so many clients I'd love to just make YouTube videos talking about the process of how we made that video, but I'm just not allowed, and it's so frustrating. It's like, I wish I could, then I'd have a great YouTube channel. But yeah, it's an interesting world, the creator economy, we're almost pioneers in this space. There's not many people who are still doing this kind of thing. We're having to work it out. And as I said, it's all about the information and trying to learn that from even from adjacent businesses that are nothing to do with YouTube, but they are an online business. There's still so much that we can learn there. And I find it fun. This is enjoyable to me. I don't see this as a chore, even though sometimes it can feel like it when you've worked 14-hour days and then you've got an hour conversation with your accountant. It's like, I'm just hearing numbers right now. Nothing's going through. But overall, yeah, it's like, I love this. I could never get a job again, like full-time job. This is just the Wild West, and it's fun. And to anyone who's listening, who's thinking about, working in the creator economy, like, do everything you can to join and work alongside us, because it's such a great place. And we've spoken about it in previous episodes where the supply and demand is just completely out of whack at the moment. There are so many people that want thumbnail designers or script writers, and there's just not enough of them. Start putting your work out there on Twitter, and you'll quickly find that it's quite easy, I would say, at this stage to start a career in this. And as I said, it's incredibly rewarding when you work with YouTube, or you put it up and then, 3 days later, they're at 500k views. It's a great thing. And, YouTube is just such a fun place to work.
I feel like we have this kind of wheelbarrow full of problems that we really like having, and part of the job is discussing these problems and figuring them out and communicating the solutions to other people. So yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I think some people, they can hear this sort of stuff and think, oh, they're complaining, but it's not complaining. It's just, like, say, airing things out and speaking to someone else. But yeah, it's problem solving, because for the most part, you are just an individual, and it's sometimes hard to see the forest from the trees, or to, watch YouTubers or read books for advice, and they all say conflicting things, and you go around in circles, and it can make you so frustrated. But every time that I've spoken to you or others in this space, it makes me just feel really energized to go and like tackle that problem and solve it.
On closing thought on focus. Yeah, I when I'm trying to focus, I have so there are to-do lists, and I have a do not do list. If I want to have a really focused day, I kind of go through my do not do list, and I have milestones. Did you not do this thing by 12:30, by 3 p.m., by 6 p.m.? And the list is: do not check Twitter, do not check WhatsApp, do not watch any non-work related YouTube video, do not check email other than at specific times, and do not use your phone to do anything. And if I can try, so if I really, really want to get more done in the day without wasting any time, I follow that list of rules and try and hit each target by 3 p.m., 6 p.m.
Yeah, I like that. I might have to create
I recommend.
Yeah, I have to try a don't do this list. Sounds really useful, actually. Because I put things in place like, okay, only check the email at 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. and it doesn't happen, because it's like, oh, I need to open up my email to get that thing for this client, and then I see 3 emails, and I'm like, oh yeah, I better get to that, and then I've got all these other things that I need to do, and it's like you're on this treadmill, and that's how you can end up working those insane days. Yeah, I think that's cool. I'm gonna steal that and make my own version. All right, cool. I guess we'll wrap it there. Thanks for listening to this episode, or watching if you're watching on YouTube. I guess we'll catch you all next week with George when he's hopefully returned to the podcast. Catch you later. Bye.